Hello, and welcome to another video. This time making a kind of whimsical, rabbit-style Burrow house, but slightly different from the other ones. Starting off with a block of polystyrene, then some underfloor insulation board, which gets beveled down to form a base. The aim being something that can be used in a kind of moonstone setting, or maybe turnip in a pinch. To create the walls, I took some foam core, cut it down to about 2 inches tall, then scored the outside, so they'd create curved walls, aiming for a kind of bean-shaped building, with some plaster walls and a turf roof, using hot glue just to stick everything together. Then taking a dirty knife, I started trimming some of the polystyrene to remove some of the harsher angles, but leaving a few of the straights on the side where I wanted some brickwork. Then taking 2 strips of foam core and bending them over, I glued them in the middle so there'd be something to build a chimney around. Then, realising I didn't like the shape, I took the knife and trimmed the edges of the walling, so it'd have a bit more of a collapsed bit on the sides and look a bit more like a natural mound. For the stonework, I took styrofoam, carved it into blocks before trimming it into bricks, making some paving slabs by keeping the bricks larger and using tin foil to push a stone texture into them. Then cutting them in two again, I created the steps leading up the front of the building, using matte Mod Podge to glue them in. Then on the straight edge parts of the polystyrene, I filled that in with styrofoam bricks, so we'd have the implication of an older ruin underneath the mound. Then taking underfloor insulation and some more hot glue, I filled in the roof, layering various pieces on top of each other, so it'd have a bit more of a natural variation and lumpiness to it. For the chimney, I used smaller pieces of brickwork and random bits of styrofoam that are on my desk, and trimmed down the support in the middle, once there are enough pieces on the outside. I also made a few windows out of single pieces of styrofoam, cut down to look a bit more like brickwork. To fill in the areas between the brickwork, I took some polyfiller and using a sculpting tool, pushed that into the cracks and the crevices, and filled in the mortar, as well as the plaster panels between the brickwork, working down with a flat edge of a tool till it was fairly level. Given the sections of walling on the sides are meant to be more kind of crumbling older architecture, I didn't have a problem with being a bit haphazard with the polyfiller, so it should all kind of just blend together. Mixing up a batch of sculptor mould, I then filled in the roof and the areas around the outside of the building, trying to go for a fairly smooth finish on the top. But it doesn't have to be a perfect job, as it will be covered with texture paste later. Once the main roof part had dried, I mixed up a second batch so I could have more control on the overhang, going over the edges of the walling. Then taking sand, PVA and black gesso, as well as some cork flock, I mixed up some texture paste and started applying it around the piece. On top of the normal aquarium rocks, I also had some little mushrooms I'd sculpted out of milliput, which was made from the excess last time I used some, and I thought a nice little mushroom patch would be fun. So I chose an unassuming patch and started mushrooming it up. I wanted a kind of overhanging balcony pier type thing on one side, so I took some balsa wood, trimmed it into timbers, and poked it into the texture paste, using small rocks to secure the basing. Some scenic gravel added a bit of extra variation along the pathway, and I used the flat edge of a knife to tap it into the texture paste. With the core of the piece done and the textures laid down, I started priming the piece using black gesso. I also need to get some more burnt umber because paint is probably not meant to look like this, but I added some water and it came out fine. So, a layer of burnt umber over the black gesso, and that would lay a foundation of dark brown. Then taking a large makeup brush and some tan earth colour, I gave a heavy dry brush over the entire piece. Then went in again with a brush and filled in the plaster sections with the same tan earth colour. For the stone elements in the brickwork, I took white paint, watered it down, and applied a layer over the top. I had removed the wooden posts to make the painting easier, so I took some matte Mod Podge and replaced them. Once the timbers were in place, I then took some coffee stirrers, stained them with watered down black paint, and constructed an overhang. Jumping back to balsa wood, I then filled in the areas between these posts to create a small fence. Giving them a quick dark stain, using watered down black gesso once the matte Mod Podge had dried. To add a bit more interest to the front walls, I trimmed down some more coffee stirrers and created 2 trellises. So these will sit in front of the wall and add a bit more of a 3D-ness to them. Taking an old brush, I then started dappling Mod Podge over the top of the piece and applied a layer of static grass over the top, using the static grass applicator and a mixture of winter and autumnal grasses, which have a slightly yellowy tint to them. Then taking some matte Mod Podge, I stuck the trellises to the front. With those in place, I mixed up the foliage slime, using 2 types of flock, the first type being more of a foam, and the other being a granule-based flock, which may be cork, I'm not 100% certain, and it would be nice to know. But I find mixing the 2 of them together with PVA, you then get a nice kind of edgy shrub effect, and has a nice effect when it dries. Taking a sculpting tool, I then applied it around the stonework, as well as the trellises, and this is a great time to fill in any gaps where maybe you can see something underneath that escaped the priming layer, or if there's anything that looks weird, just stick foliage paste on it. It's a very forgiving medium. The mushrooms needed a touch-up, so I took some rust-coloured paint and filled in the top. Again, kind of tying to that autumnal winter theme. Then to add some leafy plant things, I took the AK Interactive leaf hole punch and made some green leaves, using matte Mod Podge and layering several on top of each other to make some low-level plants, And these are great because they don't affect anybody standing on them, and they look pretty darn good. Then taking some traditional tufts, I applied a few over the piece. I also had some spare wood pieces from the balsa and the coffee stirrers that were already stained, so rather than throw them, I thought the cottage could use some spare wood as well. Next step is very important. Sculpt up a demonic monster from hell, and make sure you do the basing on him as well. Then taking some light green paint, I dappled some over the stonework, so you get a bit of kind of light lichen and moss build up, as well as applying a watered down layer over the woodwork, so you get some mildew build up. Once that had all dried, I added a few more tufts, and then it was done. So we got a kind of fantasy whimsical burrow house. Looks best from the front, but both of the sides have a few interesting bits, like the mushrooms and the ruined walls, and it is a bit lacking on the back. So I probably should have stuck a window or something else back there. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you next time.